Welcome back to another episode of the Table Network podcast. I'm Zach, one of your hosts, here with Kenzie and Chris. And in this episode, we break down ideology as a barrier to unity. This is an extension of conversations that we get to have at the Table Network all across our city. And we're excited to have you in this conversation today. Ideology, right? Like, we're all more alike and more different than I think we know. And so how do you find common ground and press in for the sake of relationship? Knowing that if I really do believe these things and I want you to believe them as well, I'm only going to be able to do that through our shared, like our common ground.
Correct.
Right? Like it starts in relationship.
Mm-hmm. You know, let's say somebody disagrees with you on, pick something that's mostly believed, let's say gravity. Okay, well, to sit there and argue with somebody about the effects of gravity, is not going to necessarily get them to believe in it anymore, because their perception or their ability to even consume truth is going to be limited to their mindset on how they're going to intake new information. Mm-hmm. And so if they trust you and they believe in you and they love you and they care about you, then your ability to speak to that truth amplifies incredibly. But if they don't trust you, then literally everything that you say, even though it may be true, is just not going to be believed. Just because it's coming from you. Right. It's like Trump could say the most amazing truth, but people will just reject it because of how he behaves.
Mm-hmm. True.
Yeah, if I just lie in a sweet tone of voice in a very charming way, I can get people to buy the lie. I think about this author I read one time, and he was talking about are you cold? Is it cold up there?
It's a little chilly. Is this going to bother anybody?
In a knapsack. You're in a cocoon.
At first I was like, he can't be serious right
now. Okay, so I was reading this author, and he was talking about in order to truly believe something, that it has to make sense mentally, right? I have to be able to wrap my mind around it. It has to make sense relationally. If I go to you guys and I'm like, hey, I don't know about this gravity thing, I'm probably not, and you guys just heckle me for that, rightfully so. It's probably not going to hold on to that belief for very long. And then it's going to be more true if it's experienced. Like I have had an experience with gravity. I know it to be true, like mentally and now experientially. And so relationship is key to that.
Sorry, I needed to clear my throat.
When you guys think about ideology, I mean, I think a lot of times we think politics, but ideology, when we use the term, can encompass a lot of different thought systems. What are some other things that you guys think about?
Yeah, I was thinking about. I mean, maybe this you answering could be helpful, but I'm trying to figure out like what the difference between beliefs and ideology are. Like, are they synonyms or are they different, and why?
The way I look at it is our worldview really forms our ideology. Ideology would be something that is putting like the worldview into tangible motion. So our beliefs inform that ideology. Our experiences inform that ideology. So all those traits, they inform it, but it really is like putting our worldview into a tangible format. And that's true about political components, my faith components, even like the leadership philosophy that we live by, that is out of my leadership ideology. Mm-hmm. So to me, it puts into motion action that is based on my worldview and all those traits.
Okay.
No, that makes
That's
sense.
Helpful.
Because as we were prepping, I would read, and it was kind of like the undergirding thought system behind, and a lot of times they would go to political system, but you're just saying it's the undergirding thought system behind everything that we do, all the actions and decisions that I make.
Yeah, like one of Zach's his worldview, it may be unspoken or untalked about, but it's there. But then it comes into motion or like action is like how Zach shows up with an ideology that says, I'm not just for him, I'm just not he's not a slave to comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Comfort doesn't mean that much to Zach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a more tangible component that Kenzie and I can interact with, as opposed to an unspoken worldview.
Yeah.
Because he lives it out. So it's like we see that doesn't drive him like it drives me.
Mm-hmm.
I love comfort. So it then in that, so comfort, when you think about that, that's really formed from my experiences. It's because my definition of it is different, my hopes and traditions, and so it just materializes and for me, an ideology that unfortunately in some ways like pursues comfort all, like I just want comfort all the time. And so now you can interact with that when it shows up in negative or positive ways, because now I am literally like arranging my whole life around that comfort, that pursuit of comfort. And now that might like show up at work in certain ways. If I want a really bougie, comfy office. And now you have to interact with that ideology, and not that you could, this is a more superficial one, but it's still something that you can interact with and be like, no, I reject that ideology. I was like, you should not be pursuing comfort. You should be pursuing comfort for other people. Like it can create now something tangible that we can, in essence, argue about.
Yeah. That is a great example, because I think this whole journey is both self-awareness, and as I better understand myself, I better understand that others aren't designed and don't share the exact same worldview that I have. And so I'm better able to understand their worldview, and then better able to connect and serve them. And so, yeah, my comfort ideology is almost diametrically opposed to yours. If I'm comfortable in my mind, I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. Like I've got to shake out. I've got to go sacrifice. I've got to whatever. And that's not necessarily right. So I can address that within myself. But then now as others enter in the picture, whether it was Caitlin, my wife, my kid, I have to give them some sort of comfort. I can't keep doing things the way that I've always done things, which was like, hey, you're homeless, come stay at my house. Mm-hmm. Hey, yeah, come detox off meth at my, like I've got to start thinking outside of myself for a relationship now.
That's it. That's exactly it. That's the wrestling with ideology. And so ideology, again, that worldview might be that under the, like, I think of it like what's under the water versus what's visible. What's visible is what now we can wrestle with. And so for me, I'm always going to not just pursue comfort for myself, but assume that you guys want that too. And so for me as a leader, as an owner, as a boss, I'm going to be pursuing comfort for you unless we wrestle with it. Mm-hmm. That's when ideology comes above the surface, to where Zach may say, well, don't worry about the comfort side so much. I would rather keep things, exciting, or I'd rather keep things more creative. Mm-hmm. Like I would rather you pursue that than my comfort. So as soon as it comes above the surface, our worldview is, we make it visible. We dare to make it visible. We dare to talk about these things. Mm-hmm. Now it converts into ideology that can either push people away or attract them based on how we relationally are willing to talk about it. But what happens in the media is that as soon as everything for them, as soon as it's above the surface, becomes a divisive, a means to keep us separate. That's why, yeah.
So like instead of wrestling towards, okay, how do we make this a win-win for the relationship, it's wrestling to divide so that someone can be right and wrong, and it can result in a lot of selfish tendencies where there might be some gain from pitting people against each other, or an easier path towards what you want, and so there is some gain to that, but at the cost of what?
Exactly.
Relationship. So
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I heard somebody talk about the identity iceberg the other day, and now I'm understanding ideology is kind of everything underneath the surface that leads to everything you see above the water.
Well, I think it's worldview is everything under the surface, and ideology is what comes up.
That makes okay.
Well, only because I look at it that way. Only because what's below the surface tends to like we can't argue about it because I don't even know I don't
Right.
know what you think about it. And so, but as soon as it comes and you make it visible, you dare to make a stand, or you dare to like say, there is gravity. If you jump off this building, you will fall. Now that gives us a moment where people can now either agree or disagree with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like writing this book. I am putting my ideology out there for everyone now to criticize or agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm taking my worldview, which is hidden to most humans, and I'm exposing it. It's that banner, it's that flag, it's that saying, okay, well, this is not what I think or feel. It's like, yikes, that's somewhat terrifying. So in the face of that fear, we tend to hold on to it even tighter. And so what you end up happening is you have churches who hold on so tightly to a truth. Do I think it's the truth? Well, yeah, I mean, probably, but they hold so tightly that they start to fight with everyone. And it's like, well, just relax a minute and give people some time to come to that truth. Instead of jamming it down their throat, like, how about we, display what God displayed to us that was attractive for us to Him,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like just beating this drum, like you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's like so that is, yeah. Does that
Yeah.
make any sense?
No,
Oh,
it does, because it's like not to get too Jesus-y, but like he held true to everything he said was true, but it was all in his behavior and how he treated people that got people to either want relationship or not. But
Yeah,
it wasn't necessarily the truths that he was saying that convinced people. It was how he was treating people,
yeah.
and that's what's
that's right.
unifying.
Yeah, he asked a lot more questions than he gave answers, and he led with
Yep.
love and seeing people. I taught this message one time, and it was truth is medicine, right? We've all heard that, but it doesn't have to be a suppository. And so there's something about the message of delivery, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
In order for truth to be received, we got to be gracious in our delivery. But it does, so it does make me think. There are times where like, ideology can unite and divide. And how do you choose when sometimes it's okay to divide? Like, is there a time where it's okay?
Yeah, to me there is. Like that's what this journey is. It's just now, how do we divide, and can we unify? Even um, can we unify around how we treat each other in the dividing?
Yeah.
I think we can. Like I can just say, well, you know, I just don't like agree with you. I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe in the same things that you believe, but that doesn't mean that we can't be friends or that we can't have like a relationship. So I can, but what I think what you're really asking is, or maybe it's like, is it right to unite or divide with people? And I would just say that there's never an okay time to like overtly just like reject humans. Like we can reject their ideas, which is what ideology is. It's an idea that they've turned into their own belief system. So if you break that word down, it's an idea that they now ascribe to as like this is what this is now what I will serve. It's my ideology. And so it's like we can not unite with every ideology, but we can unite with every person.
Mm-hmm. No, so I'm thinking of that MLK quote. It's like, you hate people because you don't know people. Have you ever had that? Like, oh, that person so totally different, and then you share a coffee, and you're like, well, maybe not as different as I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Like we actually
Yeah,
share a lot of common ground, and so I think that's good. I don't
Yeah.
know where I was going
I
with
don't,
that, but
I don't,
I
I
have a
think it is
question.
good. I think that's the pursuit, is that don't let ideology like give you the permission to throw people away.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Kenzie, how do you feel like how well defined do you feel like your ideology is even to you? Like, do you feel like you've?
I think even just like talking about it, like wrestling through, okay, what are the things that I do hold like so tightly that maybe have caused some rifts in relationship, or I don't know. And I think it is kind of this thing that isn't talked about very often. I think you usually revert to the political answer. But I think it does influence and impact so much more than just that. And so thinking through, okay, it exists, but I don't know how I don't know how much time I've spent actually like filtering through, okay, how does this show up in my life and how does it, I don't know.
Hmm.
Do you feel like yours is?
I think there are people that have. I think there are some people that just have like as an Enneagram 8. I just feel like I'm probably more willing to allow my ideology to be visible than most people.
That's true. I think that's,
And so I do think there's like personality that comes into that as well.
yeah, I definitely, I mean, even like at our family dinner table, when people start, spitting back and forth their like ideas on whatever's going on in the country. And I've always been the type of person that's just like, I'm going to hang back. It's not worth risking relationship. I have opinions. I have thoughts. It's not like there's nothing going on in my brain, but I don't want to risk the rift in relationship. So therefore I very rarely will ever say anything, which sometimes is good. And then other times, if I, is there a time when I should speak up and I should share my thoughts? I don't know. But I
It's
definitely have the
interesting
tendency.
when you said that. Jordan Peterson talks about the fact that the reality of living a life that we avoid risking offending someone is a life of no thought.
Hmm.
Like if we live out this kind of this mentality of like, I'm just not going to risk offending anybody, then I have to set aside um this like critical thinking,
Hmm.
because if you follow things to their ultimate conclusion of truth or lie,
Mm-hmm.
then you process through all of that, then certain things will bubble to the surface for you that become like that banner that you, because you believe in it, and you're not going to just be vanilla. You're not going to just be everything below the surface, because you also want to have relationship. And so
Mm-hmm.
relationship forces you to talk about things. You and Mike have talked about things that you dared to risk to talk about, and everything that you avoid talking about today,
Mm-hmm.
that will come up after you get married. um, your perspective on those things will either be to serve marriage or to serve divorce.
Mm.
And that's the critical thinking that has to take, and you have to risk offending him,
Yeah.
or else you're going to feel alone. Like, I'm just not
Yeah.
going to talk about it because I don't want like, oh, I might
Mm-hmm.
lose him.
Yeah.
Do you see how like it, to me as a human, I just feel like God gave us this brain to compute and to critically think and to formulate this worldview, and
Mm-hmm.
then like, okay, well, I have it. What do I do with it? Well,
Yeah.
risk relationship. Like, I want you to risk it, but not in a jerk off way, not in like this, I'm right. That's not risk. To be so dogmatic about everything is not risking. You're just saying I don't care about people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you risk it, and you're vulnerable, and you float it out there, and you ask people to help inform that ideology,
Mm-hmm.
man, what a way to leverage ideology for unity.
Yeah. Willing to actually wrestle with it in a way that,
Yeah.
yeah, can risk relationship, but can also actually deepen relationship. It's like the whole, you're never going to grow if you don't get out of your comfort zone. You're never going to
Yeah.
be able to inform your ideology more or expand your worldview if you're never willing to talk about it and be
Yep.
open to being wrong or having people critique, which is something I absolutely hate, and so definitely need to be challenged in. It's funny, even last night we were in the car, Mike and I, and we were talking about just in we're both have the tendency to kind of just keep our I couldn't think of what the word was, but I'm not the confrontational person. I'm not the person who's just going to like hold my ground. I am a like passive, like, how do I make this as comfortable for the other person? Even if they should be told some truth, how do I
Mm-hmm.
kind of push back, but not in a way that they're going to be mad at me? And so it's like this weird place of, I just, I can't figure out, and it's something I'm challenging myself on is, yeah, how to hold firm and risk being offensive, but in a way that is still relationally driven to where I don't lose people, but I'm not sacrificing what I need to accomplish and get done too. And that's really, really difficult, specifically for me. Maybe other people too, but and Mike agreed. He thought it was also difficult. So
Yeah, and I do think it would be better if people did wrestle with that more.
mm-hmm.
But I also think too, like I'm willing, I want to be the kind of person who is willing to risk um, the truth being offensive, but not my behavior.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
So it's like, yeah, it's just the thing that's true is true whether they believe it or not. If they jump off a building, they are going to fall, and it won't matter if they believe me or not. The truth is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But if I am belligerent and I am condescending and I am self-righteous, if I take behavior on, it's no longer that the truth of gravity is actually offensive. I'm offensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the part I want to avoid. That's the part of where ideology is divisive, as opposed to really leveraging ideology to create actual unity,
Mm-hmm.
which in order to really have that unity, you have to debate these things. You have to talk about them, because that's the only way for somebody to actually maybe, and for us as well, to learn what is true.
Mm-hmm. Where do you feel like emotions play into this? Because I'm thinking about, like, it's very easy to say, you know, if somebody says something that's offensive to me or like against something I believe, I am a very emotional person. And so, like, it's easy to say, like, okay, I just won't let that like ruin relationship. But if it's truly like I guess maybe if they're not doing it as a way to be rude. I don't know. I just feel like for me, emotions would play into it would cloud my ability to like just wrestle with the topic and not with the person. I just feel like that'd
Yeah.
be difficult for me.
Yeah, I think everybody has to kind of gauge how emotions show up in their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for you, maybe it drives your response, and you've got to be careful to uh, navigate those or put them
Mm-hmm.
in the proper place. Why are those there, and how are those either building unity or
Yeah.
the opposite? For me, I see emotion and I just check out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't understand those things. I don't want anything to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of sit in that quiet place, like you're talking about at
Mm-hmm.
the family gathering where everybody's talking politics. And I'm like, nope,
Mm-hmm.
not doing that.
Yeah.
I think empathy is so huge because it, like for my wife and I, when we talk about certain truths or certain components of ideology, um, one of the things that as an Enneagram 8, one of the things that I hate is when people I love are fed information that's not necessarily coming from a pure uh, motive. And so I question things all the time. I'm literally a challenger all the time. Well, when I do that with information that's been given to my wife, I can come without having any emotional awareness. I will come across to her like, I just think, I just think you're duped all the time.
Mm.
When that's not really what I'm wanting her to like. I want her to know that I'm trying to offer her like protection, like
Mm-hmm.
it's this idea like I want to like serve you well in this pursuit of information.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be empathetic entering into that to understand where she might like find herself from emotional defensiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything I might then come in with, if she's feeling like you just think I'm like a dummy, like you just think I'm gullible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're gullible. I think these people, including myself, can be incredibly charismatic in a way that makes people believe them. And so I just want to make sure I'm protecting and challenging what that person is saying to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can come in with empathy and say, well, okay, well, she's probably going to feel like I think she's a dummy if I just attack what that other person is saying,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like making sure she knows, and I address that emotion by like really entering in with empathy
Mm-hmm.
before lead with empathy.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, for me, Kenzie, that's like the biggest. And when I do that, man, I have to slow way down. I have to become very, very aware of how
Mm-hmm.
people are experiencing truth. Like it just changes
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so messy. I'm like, okay, think about how you're behaving and think about what their emotions are going to be when you do this, and think about like there's so many components to this that it's complicated and it's tricky, but it is worth trying to figure out. I mean, we're never going to get this perfectly,
No,
unfortunately, but each person is worth kind of going through that minefield a little bit to figure out how can I really show up well in this moment, and you can still hold true to your beliefs, but there's so many different components to it. So good luck, everyone.
that's that's a great word picture. It is a minefield.
Mm-hmm.
When you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, it's not if you're gonna set something off. It's when you set something off. How
Mm-hmm.
do you recover? Like, how do you care for the mess you've made?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
even
how do I, yeah, show up well in those scenarios?
yeah, and even just thinking too, because I'm like, oh, this seems so gross and messy and tricky. So like, wouldn't it just be great if we all were just thought the exact same way and we didn't have to deal with all this? And it's like, actually, that would be incredibly boring, really suck. Like even the quote you were talking about earlier, like the ability to critically think, like that's so cool that we can do that. And so it's recognizing it is actually a very cool gift and ability that we do have to have ideology. It's not just like this terrible thing that we're burdened with, but it actually helps innovate and create so many different ways to view the world that can actually help us evolve as people if we can figure out how to do it in a way that cares for people along the
That's
way.
right. Yeah, with no differences, all you get is sameness.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, unity can't exist where there are no differences, because unity has got to be a choice. And to choose with somebody, to choose to unite with somebody is like an overt action that you take. And so if we're all the same, then there's nothing to risk. And if there's nothing to risk, there's nothing to unify around.
Hmm.
And so I think of unity more as an emotion, more of a choice that I'm going to unite with you no matter what, even though I know we don't agree
Mm-hmm.
on things. I'm still going to unite. I just think, again, marriage is a great picture of
Yeah.
that. Going into it, I know we don't agree. I
Mm-hmm.
know we don't, but I choose to unite with you anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think marriage is a great picture of that. Marriage isn't about the emotion of love. It's about the choice of unity. And are you going to be willing to do that for the rest of your life or not?
Yep.
Because, yeah, the love will come and go. So
Yep.
I've been told. We'll see.
I was waiting for Zach to just jump right in there with that whole,
I think I
marriage,
stumped
unity.
him.
I was like,
that's good. There are days where I'm like, why the heck did God create marriage? This thing makes no sense by design.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It's got to be more about, I was thinking about the feeling of love or happiness or whatever that we can make the end goal versus like the bigger picture, which is a picture of unity and like the depth or the experience of love, not the feeling of love.
Well,
And so
there's a difference between, I mean, you think about like truly knowing somebody, like, and when you feel truly loved, it's because they love you for the parts you don't really love about yourself. Like they're okay. Maybe they don't love those things, but like to truly be loved is to be accepted for all of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like it's no fun for people to just love you for your good parts. You know, like that's not true depth of relationship. And I think that's what we all crave, but we're so scared of. But we can't ever get to that point if we're not willing to be truly known by people. And so it is a weird concept, and I think we don't want to go through it, but it's what actually brings us the true fulfillment of any relationship, is being truly and fully known.
I love the fact that Sue and I have almost nothing in common. In fact, it's funny, people have through the years been like, you got to find like hobbies to do together, you got to do all these things. And I'm like, I know, but everything she likes I don't really like, and everything I like she doesn't like. I think of it now, we're going to be celebrating 32 years this year. I actually think of that as like a true like unity badge of honor. Like every day now goes by, I'm like, yeah, I am an idiot and she's still here. And it's not like every day we choose vanilla. Like again, we choose not to think. We choose to risk. We risk a lot. And yet we're still here. And and this morning I walked in and was telling her I'm going to be on a podcast, and just so that when you walk through, and these quirky things like I snore, so she wears earplugs, pugs. So as I'm telling her this, she's not really hearing me, and it's this interchange of like, we're just two people. It's like, I love the fact that we don't have anything in common, and yet we're still here. And every day now is like, we did it again, another day of nothing in common, and yet this idea we're going to pursue unity more than we're going to pursue like hobbies. I just think it's so much more rich than the things that bind us together that are natural are just kind of easier. And that's why like the dating process or this courting process of like figuring out, am I going to marry this person, can be a little, if you're not willing to talk about hard things, it can set up a false expectation. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to marry this person. We have so much in common. We love doing this together. We love doing that together. Right. But what are going to happen on the days when you guys are literally at your worst? And then you're like, I really don't like you. And so it's like, well, what is going to drive you? Because every day is going to be hard. And so what's going to drive you? And to me, that thing that we got to pursue is unity, and to celebrate our differences on the path to unity.
Dang. Okay.
There you go. Now you're ready to get married.
I do feel like this was a little bit of premarital counseling, but.
Well, we all need that every day. Every day I need somebody to come in and counsel me like, hey, you got to get through this one more day. I feel like I'm in like that, like a Rocky movie where I'm in the corner after getting the crap beat out of me. And then I need someone to coach me, like, you get back out there. Just one more round, buddy. Just one more round. Somebody just slap me across the face, give me some smelling salts, and send me back out there. But you're going to love it. It's going to be great.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited. Mostly because when you're describing that, I'm like, I kind of just feel like that's any relationship, not just marriage. It's people. You feel like you're getting slapped around and you're like, golly, am I supposed to still be kind to these people? But when you do, and when you can overcome all of the slaps in the face, it's a way better movie.
Way better, right?
Instead of the easy path. We love an underdog or somebody that's able to overcome. Like, that's what gets us excited. It's not the person who just coasts through life and never has any problems.
Exactly.
So
gives us something to fight for.
For sure.
Unity.
All right. Any final thoughts? Parting wisdom, Zach?
I'll say, so I'm still thinking on that Jordan Peterson thought, and thinking about how like I show up at family gatherings. And so when I show up, there is usually a lot of passion, a lot of emotion in the room, and they represent the two polar ideologies, the extremes. And so I was thinking about, as you were talking, like the necessity or the beauty of you speaking into the middle. There is a balanced middle in society and culture, and we need more people to speak up from that perspective. And so that, to me, is just a little bit of encouragement moving forward to like throw my voice in the mix, despite the cost, despite the fact that you might get slapped around.
Yeah.
So,
well, we can cut this out if we need to, but I feel when you were talking, Chris, about the the truth can be offensive, but like how we do it, like one of the most impactful things that I've ever heard was that the gospel is like just 100% offensive to the way that human beings are. Like it should offend us, but Jesus never was offensive.
That's right.
And so that helped me, yes, in like my ability to communicate, like just even my like own faith and beliefs to people and not worry about offending, because I can just say what I believe, but I don't have to do it in a way that's rude or offensive in how I communicate it. But it is like the freedom to know that it is okay that truth can be offensive. Like the freedom that brought me to understand like, okay, there's a difference in what truth is and then how you communicate it.
Yeah.
And that's what this is all about. It's not about actually the truth part, which I do think matters, but what we're talking about is the unity that exists when you can separate those two things and still treat somebody like a human being across from you, while saying something that is offensive to them.
Yeah.
So
I think by nature, truth is exclusive.
like in order for it to be truth, it like has to offend someone.
Yeah, well, yeah, by saying something is, you're saying something isn't.
Yeah. But people don't like that.
No.
We can go into all of that, but people do not like truth. They want their own truth. Anyways, okay. I don't know.
As soon as you identify your ideology, you have claimed a truth. It may just be for you, but it's a truth. And so this reality of like, how does that affect other people needs to be in our minds as I'm proclaiming, as I'm saying, as I'm owning or asserting, what's that other person thinking or feeling, and how do I invite them in as opposed to exclude them from this truth? It really does inform how we can show up for others. It really is an act of service, because you have a truth that you believe. And so I just want to offer it to somebody else. Like I think it helps and it serves them well if they understand this truth. So why do we then, if we're doing it or offering it as a way to serve other people, why do I do it in such a damaging way? This is supposed to be helpful. And yet I am doing it in such a harmful way. And that to me is kind of the essence of fighting for unity, is leveraging ideology for unity, not ideology for my own pride, for my own, like, I know something. Well, good for you. You're going to know it completely alone, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking we take a part of a truth, like maybe in and of itself, it's true, but it's a part of this bigger picture where there are other truths also. And we make it the whole truth in a way that we don't create space for conversation. But I'm also thinking about what you're saying now in regards to like relativism. If we don't have truths, then really we don't have anything to unify behind.
Yes.
Right? Like if we can't even agree that there are truths, then we're all just kind of doing our own thing together.
Yeah. Oh, it's so weird. My mind like kind of melts a little bit because I do think about, I'm like, other people, I'm like, that truth is stupid. And then I'm like, but my truth is right. And that's just not the point at all. But we do need to have, some semblance of truth so that we can, what are we even trying to unify around? But how do we not throw people away? Oh, man.
It's the conundrum or the paradigm of like, there are no absolute truths. And then
that's an absolute truth.
That statement itself is an absolute truth. So it's literally that every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just realizing too, like whatever aspect of truth I'm able to see today, is not the whole truth.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't know the whole truth. I can know what I know today, but I need to be pursuing more and more truth. And so
Mm.
on the receiving end of truth, I think it also informs like how we are going to unify or can we unify is like, am I, when somebody else identifies their ideology, like how am I at receiving truth?
Yeah.
So it's not just like what I'm willing to say or state, but what do I do internally, emotionally, psychologically when other people assert their truth?
Mm.
And that
Yeah.
also helps us, I think, like fight for unity is like getting ourselves ready to accept another perspective.
Totally. Well, and I think you said something really good that what we can hold as true today, can we just agree that it might not be true tomorrow? And like the openness, which I think will help a ton if we can all, because I'm even thinking about me. I'm like, do I actually think that what I believe is true today could change tomorrow? Am I okay with that? Am I willing to let that be, even if it's just not going from, what I think today is right and then tomorrow it's wrong, but the evolution of like just growth and new information, and that is okay to admit that we don't know the whole truth right now.
That's
Or
right.
might never.
Yeah, this is kind of a silly example. I mean, but it helps me to contextualize this, knowing that other ideologies actually like start wars or divide people or lead to all sorts of things. But the LeBron MJ debate, like somebody says LeBron is the greatest. And maybe that is a truth. I have to step out of my MJ echo chamber and actually like wrestle with, what do you mean? He's the greatest on his team. He's the greatest this season. He's greatest because of longevity. We got to figure out, okay, how do we define greatest? Like there's this full conversation as to, is that actually true? And why do you hold that dear? But if I just come in hot and I'm like, nah, dude, he sucks. Conversation over and we both miss out.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
and even in that, what I love about those kind of debates, but unfortunately we take so many others too seriously. But that one is a great example of one where I am totally an MJ is the greatest camp, and but when somebody like lightheartedly or even like semi seriously wants to really debate and like
Mm-hmm.
let's go at it, and we go through exactly what you just talked about, like, well, let's define greatest, what makes him a greatest, what are we going to go on stats, are we going to go on wins, about all these other, at the end of that, I when we do it in a constructive way, like in a lighthearted way, which is somewhat easy to do with an MJ versus LeBron debate, I feel so much closer to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
even when we disagree, it's like that was fun. Like that
Mm-hmm.
was a good time. Like I
Yeah.
know that's my personality, but that's like a lot of fun for me to debate those kind of things. And like
Mm-hmm.
it opens the door for deeper relationship. But as soon as you bring up other things that I hold more tightly or more seriously, oh man, those same things end in division. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
why don't that person? What the heck? I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like two sides of the same coin. And so can we just be more lighthearted? Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's take ourselves less seriously and realize that I don't know the answer. And so let's enjoy the process. Like, let's enjoy the
Yeah.
debate because
Yeah.
it can inform.
Yeah. Your ideology is not the fullness of your identity.
Right.
Right. And it can feel like that in that moment
Mm.
when that thought, with all the other life experience and worldview behind it, is challenged in that moment.
Mm.
Yeah. That's well said. It's not your identity.
All right, Ken. So to be totally honest, going into that, I didn't even know what ideology was. And now I feel like I am seeing where it is driving things in a lot of different areas of my life.
Yeah, my brain is definitely mush. I feel like I have a lot of things that I need to think about and process so that I can show up better for people.
So if you listen to this conversation and you have things that you're processing through also, we would love to process with you. Go ahead and rate and review and give us any questions that you guys are wrestling with around this idea of fighting for unity or ideology. We look forward to seeing you guys either at a local table network here in Austin, Texas, or on the next episode.